My name is Helen Ferguson. I grew up in Norfolk and Lampless Point area of Norfolk.
Okay. So this interview really is talking about your mother specifically, but also you and your journey as you're finding out that she was one of the 220 African American men and women who built this garden back in the 1930s, 40s. So, can you take us back to your first visit to North Botanical Garden? What were your emotions and thoughts as you stood there witnessing your mother unveiling, breaking ground at the WPA Memorial Garden?
Oh, wow. That's a wonderful question. And also, it was a bittersweet moment. And bitter is to say, I think about all of the ladies, including my mother and the men, the hard work that they had to do and endure. That was the bitter part. The
Yeah.
sweet part is I got a moment of pride
Mm.
that she was able to unveil it for the rest of the ladies and the men, that they were recognized. Their hard work was not in vain. It was something that their children, their grandchildren, their great grandchildren on will be able to look at it and say, this is what one of my family members did.
And you talk about pride and you talk about your mother. Describe your mother, not just as one of the last known living WPA workers, but as a person. What values or lessons did she instill to you that you continue to use to shape the way that you live?
First thing, mother was very funny. She was a spunky lady. I've known her to do a lot of things. Her main thing is the way she brought us up. All five of her children were be she brought us to be up to be able to do things, to let us know that we can accomplish anything, no matter what struggles is put before us, but we can go through it. She funny. I say I'm a lot like her. She has two daughters, three boys, and it's funny because I seem to be more like her. She was an upbeat, happy person.
Mhm.
She always was doing things for people, which I got that from her because all of her children, we all love to help someone no matter what. And if it meant giving them our last, we're going to do that. And mother was definitely that. And she was also called Miss Florence Nightingale because she liked doing things to help people.
Mm. So, did she ever talk about her experience as being the WPA worker? I heard through the grapevine that it was sort of something that she was not proud of and that she kind of kept hidden. What was any experiences or anything that she kind of sort of shared with you and her children about this work that she's done at the garden?
Well, considering I'm the second to the last out of five, mother never discussed it with us. When I knew, when I found out about it, it was when they were saying, your mom's being interviewed and all. My sister had already heard some of the stories of how bad it was, of what mother had to do. Even though she wasn't born during that time, mother only had one child,
Mm.
and that was the oldest son. She didn't like when we were able to come, and I'm going to say we were able to come into the garden. Her granddaughter wanted to bring her to see the lights, and she wouldn't. She didn't want to come. She did not want to come. So she never told us why, but later on, after she went through talking to Amy and they got her to come to the garden to see that it is a beautiful thing that they've done, then she started saying it was so embarrassing to us that we had to go through all that. None of the women or men told their children or anything about what happened. There was a lady that her children, when she come home, had to wrap her feet because it was so cold. It was embarrassing, and that is the way that I took it. That it was embarrassing, even and the amount of money that they gave them for doing such labor, chopping down trees with a pickaxe, shoveling. In the summer, it was so hot and you had mosquitoes and you had bugs. The winter, you were cold and frozen, no way to stay warm, but they wanted you to work in the real bad environmental times.
Mm. So you talk about we weren't allowed, and the climate of the country at that time. Can you speak a little bit about what that meant as far as your family? There are the kind of sort of climate that your mom went through during, after World War II into those moments. And did that really shape what has kind of sort of impacted what way that you move and groove today? And have things improved?
Ah, yes, and thank you. Wonderful question, because I feel, and I said when I said we was because I was back in that time. Sometimes I don't think I was, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I was back there. I remember the queens, and they would be on the floats, and I always wanted to come to Azalea Gardens to see them get crowned. But at that time, we weren't allowed. And slowly we started being allowed to come in. Um, I always wanted to see that, and I never got to do that. But the way that things have changed and finding out who started all this is when I got this sense of pride, because I was like, well, if they don't want me there, I don't want to go there, you know. But as you get older, you realize that was what happened back in time. Times are changing. We still have a long ways to go. I have pride in this garden because my mother was part of it. My granddaughters love this garden. A couple of them graduated from high school, had to have their pictures out here by the statue. They wanted, because that was their grandmother's legacy for them. And so as her great grands and grands come into the garden, they get a sense of pride. And that's the way I feel. Every time I come through the gates, I have this upbeat. I try not to think about all the bad things that they went through, but I want to think about the things that are happening now, and how mother, if she was here, she'd be smiling all over everywhere. Look at here. This is what I had to do. Look at the statue. She would be very proud.
Now, we've talked a lot about your mother, you talk about your children, and there's another person who really kept you at the garden. And talk a little bit about your late husband and how he created your continued involvement with the garden. Tell us about that kind of love story.
Oh, wow. My mother was, first time I came in was the unveiling of the statue, and I saw Bruce. And we spoke and talked, and then we exchanged numbers. And when we talked, he said, you need to get on this committee. He said, because with your mother being there, helping build this garden, that would be something that you could help with. And I was like, okay. And as we were just dating, and then fast forward, he proposed to me and we got married. He loved my mom. My mother loved her some Bruce. I think she put Bruce before me. But it was one of those things that his thing was, he does not want the diversity committee to go away. He wants it to stay here forever because it's a growth. And he was the type of person that wanted everyone, just like my mother. She wants everyone to see what a beautiful garden is. But he, Bruce, always said, I don't want them to forget.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, they will not forget. You know, even up until his last days, he says, always remember that the garden is a part of you.
Mm.
And I said, okay, that's something I won't forget. But I feel that he was the big part of me coming here because I probably would have came here, watched the unveiling and left and not find out more about it, even though I love history. But it was like he wanted me to make sure I was a part of it since he was a part of it.
And so you've got this two powerful figures that help shape the garden today. You're talking about your mother, you're talking about Bruce. And so today, taking all of that push and all those things that they've done, what do you feel like today inspires you to continue on that message? And do you feel the garden is doing those things?
Yes, a great question. Yes, I do feel that the garden is doing those things. They're expanding. Okay, the two powerful people in my life, and I'm going to say that my mother and Bruce, they want this to continue. So with all the new expansion, we still have what started, and now they're gone, but I'm a part of the future of the garden of tomorrow. I get to see that expansion and I get to be there to watch it from the ground up. Wonderful. I went out there and I'm looking, I'm like, I was only here 2 weeks ago. And they have expanded some more. I'm gonna have a legacy to leave here too.
Mm.
Just like my mother, Mary Ferguson, and like Bruce Williams. There will be a legacy that Helen is going to leave, and her children will be able to say, and her grands and great grands will be able to say, my great grandmother helped with this as far as getting the word out to get everybody, not only blacks, Asians, Filipinos, everyone to come into this garden and enjoy the beauty of it.